That's a good way to start the video. Anyways, so I was going to wait to make the video until after the wild card weekend and kind of give like my whole 2 cents to every team that played. There's been a lot of stuff going around about talking Lamar Jackson, the Ravens, Greg Roman, and John Harbaugh on if they should get fired, what's going on, is Lamar Jackson going to be a free agent, where is he going to go, and potential landing spots, and just kind of everything about the game itself as well. And kind of kicking things off is, for people that don't know, which if you clicked on this video, you should probably know, that Lamar Jackson kind of betted on himself this year, and they offered him a guaranteed $150 million. The Ravens did, and he actually declined it in hopes to get a better deal and get more money guaranteed, which is pretty much understandable. Of course, as a player, just in general, and even as a worker, you're always going to want to get paid more. So I can completely understand that concept. The problem is the Ravens didn't want to spring for how much Lamar wanted. So Lamar said, okay, I'm going to play this year, and I'm going to make you guys realize for sure that I am worth that money that I'm asking. And basically, over the course of the season, he actually didn't play too completely bad, but he didn't actually play like the greatest either. So in his games that he played, he ended up getting injured, and so he started a total of 12 games, and he went 8-4 in those 12 games. So that is a winning record. That's not too bad. We do have to consider the type of teams he was playing. Overall, he was playing a lot of losing teams. Even when they initially played the Bengals, they were a losing team going into that first battle. So that is something to consider, because even though you're winning and it counts as a win and you get to go to the postseason because of it, doesn't necessarily mean like you're going to be that great team and that you stand a chance. Because once you get into the postseason, you're going to be playing better teams, and that's when you kind of really get challenged if your team is actually good or not. And that's when you get challenged at an individual level as well. And so he went 8-4 in the games he played. This is the second year in a row he's gotten injured, and that's a key thing to keep in mind too, because he's actually been injured in college before as well. So this isn't his first few injuries. And although people will say, well, he got injured in the pocket, that doesn't matter, because he still got injured. That's literally all I'm saying, is that he has gotten injured. He does rely on his legs a lot. Whether he is trying to throw the ball or running, he does use his legs for basically every play. You see people like Ben Roethlisberger and Tom Brady that they'll move around a little bit in the pocket, and they have gone for runs before, but they're not known for it. And if you were to take their legs out, they'll still be able to throw it over the top. Whereas Lamar, he counts basically solely on his legs, whether that be running or extending out to try to make that throw. So regardless, he still counts on his legs for basically all of his playing style. If he gets his legs taken out completely, that's a big deal for him. And because he's had like a total of 4 injuries over his college career and his NFL career so far, and all having to do with legs, that is important to know, because that can sit in your back of your mind if you're a GM going, hey, this guy's been known to get injured. He does use his legs a lot, and he wants this big money, but he's been proven to get injured quite frequently. And if he loses his legs, can he sustain just using his arm and still be a good quarterback and work up to that value? And I think that's kind of where that toss-up is. It's like, well, you've gotten injured and also hasn't produced that well in the postseason. And that's a big thing to consider too, because as a team, they also have goals as well. Where does this team want to be? Do they want to be Super Bowl contenders? Do they want to be just playoff contenders? Or are they fine being mediocre or even bad and prioritize getting better draft picks? So that's completely entirely on the team as well, and where they want to sit. So the Ravens look like they are potentially trying to be Super Bowl bound, and they're going, is this quarterback going to be healthy enough for the whole stretch? Is he going to do enough in the postseason to actually take us to the Super Bowl? And clearly, as of the last couple seasons, has not been able to do that. And of course, we haven't seen a Super Bowl out of him as well. And that goes into a lot of factors to get to a Super Bowl. Of course, you just need an all-around great team just in general. We have seen some great records come out of him, but we haven't seen anything being produced from that. So overall this season, he actually ended his 12-game stretch with 62% completion rating. He ended up throwing 7 interceptions to 17 touchdowns, and then when we go to how many sacks he had 26 sacks. And he ran for a grand total of 764 yards. Well, that's all well and good, but in the postseason, he's been 0-1, 0-1, 1-1, making him a grand total of 1-3, with a 55% completion percentage, with 5 interceptions to 3 touchdowns. His contender could possibly be Tyler Huntley, and the reason for that is because Tyler Huntley was able to keep him in the hunt, get him to the postseason, and actually did well enough to basically keep him in the game. And that was Tyler Huntley's first start for the postseason. Tyler Huntley finished his first postseason game 17 for 29 with a 58% completion rating, which is actually slightly better than Lamar's in the postseason, with 226 yards, 2 touchdowns, and 1 interception for 9 carries on 54 yards. And although they lost the game, that is pretty comparable to what we've been seeing out of Lamar. So for a lot of people that say, oh, if Lamar was playing, they would have won, that's not necessarily the case, because right here, these are stats that are basically in line with what Lamar produces as well. And if Tyler Huntley is willing to take less and not offering up that big lump sum, it actually might be advisable for the Ravens to get rid of Lamar in order to free up some cap space to be able to put better key components around Tyler and build around him. With Lamar Jackson, if they pay him more money, they're not going to be necessarily able to get those better draft picks. So that leads us to say, what will happen with Lamar? Because there's a few possibilities. One of which, he could get franchise tagged, which is not a good for either side. That basically states to the player and the team that we like you and we don't really want you to go to another team, but we don't like you enough to pay you either. So that's kind of like taking a chance on both the player and the team, kind of like what happened this year, except it's a locked in deal of, hey, we're both betting on each other. So that can be a loss. The other option with Lamar is for him to actually go to another team and become a free agent, which leads into what teams could pick him up and what teams would he be willing to play for and what teams would actually be willing to fork over the money that he wants. Does his value go down now? Will he accept that, or does he want his value to still remain what it was at the beginning of the season for the speculated $250 million guarantee? The other thing to keep in mind too is he could actually stay with the Ravens and they could actually pay him the contract that he wants. That is the third option, which sounds at this point kind of unlikely. The problem with Lamar staying right now, and if they do pay him what he wants, will be again coming down the cap space and being able to build around him. Although a lot of people will say the what if factor, well, he needs better receivers, he needs a better O-line, he needs a better defense, blah, 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 blah. And that could all very well be true, but if they pay him, they're not going to be able to spread that money elsewhere to potentially bring in better key components. So do you let him walk? That is the big ultimate question. And that leads us to what teams actually want him, which there's going to be a few teams looking for quarterbacks. Though what those teams have to keep in mind, though, as well, is they just seen the Broncos pay a big lump sum to Russell Wilson. They've seen the Browns pay a big lump sum guaranteed to Deshaun Watson, both of which, as of this current year, have not panned out. So you know that other GMs are probably looking at that saying, well, it didn't work out for these teams. What makes us think it's going to work out for us to pay Lamar to come to our team and produce good numbers? Because right now it's not proving to work for other teams. The other thing is, what teams will actually want to pay him that much or even have the means to pay him that much while still keeping what they want? So we're looking at a few teams such as maybe the Jets, maybe the Patriots possibility, and also maybe the Panthers, depending on how that works out, and even the Dolphins, depending on what happens with Tua Tagovailoa because of his injuries as well. These are all potential landing spots, not meaning they have the cap space or if they are actually looking into getting Lamar, but those are potential landing spots. The other bad thing that's going on with this right now, too, is that it came out by J.K. Dobbins that he actually said possibility of if Lamar was playing, they could have won that game. And that's a rough shot to take at Tyler Huntley. Even though Tyler Huntley is your backup quarterback, he went in there still partially injured, and Lamar didn't even show up to the game. And I think that in itself should make him lose some value. Other teams should look at that and look at the integrity of that and the discipline from that and go, you know what? You might be a star-studded player, but you still didn't back up your team. Anybody that has played on any team sport ever should realize that when you get injured, you still support your team. That's just what you do. I got injured in my senior year of football, and I had my wrist get broken in the third game of the season. I did get the fumble recovery, by the way. Tackled the running back. It was awesome. But anyway, and I still went to every practice and still went to every game and still supported him. It's just what you do. And for Lamar to not do that, I think it shows a lack of discipline, which should actually make his value go down slightly. Could he have won with Tyler Huntley versus Lamar against the Bengals? I mean, anybody can throw these what ifs out there at any time. But to look at the stats, Tyler Huntley actually performed in that game statistically better than what Lamar has in his playoff games. So going off previous stats, we can conclude that the outcome probably would have been pretty similar. I've also seen that a lot of people have been getting Tyler Huntley a lot of fire for going over the top and losing that fumble, and it got brought all the way back for a touchdown for the Bengals, but he did it earlier in the game and it worked. And anybody that does something and it works, you would be almost stupid to not do it again because it worked the first time. Why would it not work the second time? And I know it's easy to look back and say, well, you should have done it this way. But sometimes you don't realize that in the moment, right? In that moment, you're going, well, it worked last time, so it must work this time. And it just didn't happen. So it's easy to look back now and put him under fire. And will Greg Roman or John Harbaugh get fired in the offseason? As of right now, there's no hard evidence to suggest that will happen. I do believe that we're going to see Lamar Jackson potentially get franchise tagged for next year. And we're going to see John Harbaugh and Greg Roman get fired in this offseason.
Now they're going to be dealing with a 3rd and 7 as that one officially a loss of 1. Fourth quarter, down to the final 2 minutes, and we've got a 1-score game.